studies in the then Soviet Union, USSR. Along this journey, I have learned useful lessons from the school of life, the theater of rich, potent, and abundant dreams. We were created in the image and likeness of God and given power to overcome adversity and defeats, particularly when we work in unity and with a common purpose. This unity and common purpose are needed if we want to transform our great nation Ghana into a sustainable economy underpinned by social justice. As Social Democrats, the National Democratic Congress, that is the NDC, believes and has always subscribed to a compassionate political philosophy that seeks to create opportunities for all to develop to their fullest potential, and not just a few people. The framers of our Constitution and national laws espoused these principles and directed our governments to bolster social justice through equitable, prudent, and sustainable allocation of our national resources with the future generation in mind. Our governments must therefore lead the way in guaranteeing social justice. As citizens, we must not give up when our government shirks this responsibility. We must, in our own small way, keep hope alive by offering support to encourage each other. When a Ghanaian is in need, we must support him or her to rise up and walk. This promotes and sustains our common humanity. For me, the ethnicity, partisanship, religious affiliation, background, or gender of that Ghanaian in need does not matter and should not matter. The I am because you are spirit is not alien to the Ghanaian. We live and experience life as a community and not as individuals. Each day I become even more aware of our interconnectedness as a people with common hopes of prosperity, safety, and liberty for ourselves and our future generations. This fundamental lesson was evident in the contrasting lives I'd lived and found in Achimota, in Accra, in Tamale, and Damongo. As Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy, as Vice President, and as President, this guiding principle has always influenced my decision-making. Let me at this point thank you for joining me this evening as I give thanks to the Almighty God and to you, all Ghanaians, and the rank and file of the NDC for your prayers, your support, your encouragement, and perpetual guidance in my political career. I note that this audience here is drawn from a wide array of backgrounds, from high-flying professionals through to students, and to those who look forward to employment after having completed their education. This diversity notwithstanding, I believe we are all bound by a single strand woven around the desire to see our country prosper and develop in a manner that gives opportunities to all our people. It has been barely a year since Ghanaians went to the polls to elect a president and 275 members of parliament. Despite misgivings we had about the processes leading up to the election, we had reposed hope and confidence in what was a time-tested tradition of peaceful and fair elections since our democratic return in 1992. Our expectations proved to be misplaced, as the worst possible election in 29 years was delivered last year. The umpire of our elections, the Electoral Commission, for some reason chose to sacrifice the much heralded good image it had carved over the years. Our difficulties with the elections have been well documented, and I would belabor the point if I recounted them here. Suffice it to say that the kind of violence that claimed the lives of 8 of our citizens, the misuse of security agencies to influence the outcome of elections in some constituencies, and the general uneven playing field that marred the 2020 elections should never be allowed to recur. We in the NDC have duly learned useful, if even bitter lessons from the entire episode. were willing to engage the Electoral Commission in constructive dialogue with a view to addressing the clear shortfalls of our present electoral system and fashion out one that meets the expectation of all if we are to avoid the unfortunate incidents of 2020. We started this process by proposing a number of reforms to the electoral process, and we continue to carry out consultations with various stakeholders. We look forward to having an opportunity with the Electoral Commission to discuss these reforms and their possible implementation. Despite the disappointment of the loss, I deemed it appropriate to extend my appreciation and gratitude to Ghanaians who found me worthy enough to vote for in their millions. There are over 6.2 million people who, according to the officially declared results, spent time in long queues over a period of 10 hours to vote for me deserve all the appreciation I can muster. Their show of support is a great source of encouragement for me and the great NDC which I led into the elections, that we have the trust of Ghanaians and that with the right approach, we will be victorious the next time round. That trust was also reflected in the spectacular gains we made in the parliamentary elections, in which we moved from 106 seats to 137 seats, marking an increase of 31. It is trite knowledge that but for the underhand maneuvering and misuse of security agencies to overturn the true outcome of results in several constituencies, we would be the majority in Parliament today. I acknowledge the participation of those who chose to repose confidence in our opponents and voted for them. I extend my thanks to them as well. Because their decision to exercise their franchise has left our democracy the richer for it. To give expression to my eternal gratitude to Ghanaians, I have in the last few months toured the length and breadth of this country to personally convey my thanks for this massive support. I've interacted with Ghanaians across the political and socio-economic divide and experienced the challenges that they are going through both in rural and urban communities. Throughout these interactions, one thing has become resoundingly clear, and it is that our country is not on the right path. We are clearly headed for a major ditch if immediate action is not taken to reverse the trend. I also asked, after listening to many of the people who spoke in these interactions, what we can do collectively to address the excruciating hardship and suffering confronting many a Ghanaian. The problem of our country are legion and hydra-headed. And as I distill from my interactions with the people of Ghana on this tour, the most pressing problem is the impact of the ailing economy on livelihoods, prospects, and dreams. The consequences of misguided priorities in economic management has led to unbearable hardship, high unemployment, and the frustration and despair felt by millions of our youth. Other concerns include the bastardization and politicization of state institutions, the mounting corruption, rising insecurity, abuse of power, lack of investment in critical infrastructure, and abandonment of projects and heavy-handed governance. The tragedy of our current national situation is that we have a government that appears completely unwilling to acknowledge the problems and even begin the process of addressing them. We're instead confronted with an administration that believes that these major problems can be wished away through public relations, sloganeering, divisive rhetoric, populism, and plain political deception. Take our present economic state, for example. At a time when everyone is crying out over the excruciating hardship brought on by excessive taxation, ever-increasing cost of living, weekly fuel price increases, this government chooses to recite a hackneyed mantra that there are indicators that show that the economy is doing well. even if we were to overlook the mismatch between these claims and the very visceral suffering and pain people are going through in their daily life, it beggars belief that the same people saying this were only 6 years ago dismissing any linkage between the welfare of Ghanaians and economic indices. They said then that they had visited the markets and were not experiencing single-digit inflation prices in those markets as we would dictate. They insisted then that the best way to measure the strength or otherwise of the fundamentals of the economy was to look at the exchange rate, for its depreciation would expose the weakness therein. These days, however, even as the exchange rate depreciates to very worrying levels, they say, oh, the economic fundamentals are strong. Beyond these spirited linguistic acrobatics, the plain truth beyond these spirited linguistic acrobatics, the plain truth, which we all see and feel, is that the Ghanaian economy is in deep crisis. At the micro level, we feel the heavy impact of a troubled economy when we go to the market and find prices of basic items rising with alarming rapidity. We also feel it when we go to the fuel station and find that the already high price of fuel has increased once again. We further feel it when our rents are increased, or when we get onto trotro and find that fares have gone up because of increases in fuel prices. Importers feel the pinch because duty at the ports have become almost impossible to pay due to the amount of taxes slapped on them. The daily struggle of Ghanaians to make ends meet would be impossible to recount in one address. The question we ask, however, is how have things moved from bad to worse so quickly when we're promised a much better and more affordable standard of living? I would say this is the direct result of the mismanagement of the Ghanaian economy by its current managers. The present economic decline is even more shocking when viewed against the backdrop that this has been the most fortunate government in the history of Ghana in terms of the quantum of resources that it has received. After inheriting an economy that had made remarkable recovery from the shocks of a protracted energy crisis, commodity price falls, and much lower oil revenue, this government has brought this economy to its knees in ways that are totally unacceptable. In pursuit of a just and fair society, the NDC administrations of Professor John Evans Atta Mills and my good self between 2009 and 2017 achieved inclusive progress in the face of intractable national challenges. The resultant effect of our work was a resilient economy that was projected to grow at 8% in 2017. And indeed, the economy did grow at 8% in 2017 as projected. We're focused on the management of the economy in its entirety and not just in mere econometrics. This desired outcome sprang from sound and comprehensive policies which included fiscal prudence and the building up of financial reserves. Unfortunately, this government has succeeded in squandering all the unprecedented opportunities it had and has plunged us into dire financial straits. The situation has become so grave that only last week, almost every credible international financial institution, including the Fitch rating agency, reported that Ghana has lost access to the international bond market. Indeed, this government was forced to abandon the issuance of a critically needed $1 billion in green and social bonds due to very high and unsustainable public debt levels. This is the result of a total loss of confidence by the international market in the Ghanaian economy. They do not trust us to be able to meet our repayment obligations because our finances are in shambles. At the last reckoning, in the second quarter of this year, our total public debt stood at 334 billion Ghana cedis, representing a debt to GDP ratio of over 80%. And according to Fitch, this is set to rise in 2022 and reach 90% if no action is taken by 2023. This also means that the public debt has increased by 214 billion Ghana cedis from the 120 billion in January 2017. The debt to GDP ratio in January 2017 on the current rebased GDP was 56%. So how have we gone from 56% to almost 80% in 4.5 short years? Available data shows that Ghana's Eurobond debt of 13.2 billion is the third highest in sub-Saharan Africa. Expressed as a percentage of GDP, we have the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. That is, if you express the debt to GDP as a ratio of GDP, we have the highest in sub-Saharan Africa at a staggering 17.8% of our Eurobond debt. The consequence of this unbridled borrowing is that this year we'll spend over 35.8 billion Ghana cedis paying interest alone on our debt. Added to amortization, that is debt repayment of over 15.2 billion Ghana cedis. It means we'll pump 92.7% of tax revenue, amounting to about 51 billion, into debt servicing alone. With total revenue, both tax and non-tax, for this year projected to be 72 billion, we will only have 21 billion left to meet all other commitments after we have paid our debt service. And this 21 billion won't be enough to meet the public wage bill for 2021, which stands at 30.8 billion. The money left will be 21 billion, and our public wage bill is 30.8 billion. To bridge the gap between 21 billion and 30.8 billion, government must borrow more, and this will swell the public debt even further. International credit rating agencies have warned that if the situation does not improve, we could suffer further downgrades in our credit rating, and we could go as low as CCC for the first time in Ghana's history. Indications from government's own medium-term financial projections show that interest payments on our debt for the next year will reach over 40 billion, which will worsen an already very precarious situation. The debt overhang has been exacerbated by an unprecedented budget deficit of 15.6% and a primary deficit of 8%, including energy sector and financial sector payments recorded in 2020. The primary deficit is the clearest indicator of fiscal indiscipline. This extraordinarily large deficit needs to be financed through further borrowing. It was in a desperate effort to raise revenue to meet these obligations after squandering all the resources generated that government imposed a tall list of taxes in the 2021 budget, which have inflicted severe pain and suffering on Ghanaians. In effect, they punish Ghanaians for their own mishandling of the economy. The pain and suffering that these taxes have brought, leading to the rampant increases in prices of goods and services, stem directly from the gaping hole in our finances occasioned by the reckless election-related expenditure of 2020. The government has attempted to conceal its appalling incompetence and recklessness in the management of the economy with the COVID-19 pandemic. While the pandemic posed a major challenge to the global economy, including ours, it is quite clear in our case that it was the desire to win elections at all costs that got the government to engage in unbudgeted consumption expenditure to create an artificial feel-good factor before election 2020. It is this overspending that led to the very large deficit that has undermined the economy and left us in this parlous shape. Data from our neighbors and other comparative countries in sub-Saharan Africa who were also ravaged by the same COVID-19 clearly shows that almost all of them kept their economies within manageable limits and have not been thrown into economic crisis that Ghana finds itself in today. Let me begin with Côte d'Ivoire, which was President Akufo-Addo's favorite comparator to Ghana in the run-up to 2016. He was always very happy to compare Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. COVID-19 did not affect us any more extraordinarily than it did Côte d'Ivoire. Yet, their budget deficit for 2020 was 5.9%, and their debt to GDP ratio stands at 45.7%. Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Niger, and others have deficits below 7%, while their debt to GDP is nowhere near the 80% that Ghana has recorded. The undeniable effects of COVID-19 notwithstanding, it is evident from the above that the government placed the inordinate desire to win elections above prudent economic management. And that is why Ghanaians are going through so much suffering now. Long before COVID-19 struck, red flags had emerged, signaling mismanagement of the economy. We drew attention to this, but no corrective action was taken. Among these were the deliberate underreporting of the deficit through creative accounting, under which some of the expenditure items, especially in the energy and financial sectors, were treated as amortization items to artificially understate the deficit numbers. Another problem was the mortgaging of key statutory funds for borrowing, which was not reported as part of the national debt. Funds which we created, such as the GET Fund, the Road Fund, ESLA, among others, have all been collateralized for borrowing over several years. ESLA, for instance, has been extended to 2035. And so it will be a key part of our petroleum price build-up from now to 2035. It cannot be taken off. And when ESLA was introduced, it was introduced for a 5-year period to pay off legacy debts. All this was meant to lull us into a false sense of security that our debt was lower than it actually was. A serious fallout is that the intended purposes for setting up these funds has been derailed. Coupled with the capping and realignment policies of this government, the sectors they are supposed to be fund have been left completely hamstrung. For instance, let's take the District Assembly's Common Fund. The District Assembly's Common Fund is in arrears of about 4 quarters, making it impossible for any meaningful development projects to be done in the districts. Education, infrastructure, and road construction have also been in very short supply because these funds have been so heavily encumbered. Also, government's failure to settle arrears owed to contractors and suppliers, which have been grossly understated, has added to the crisis. The 2021 budget reported arrears of 8.2 billion, out of which provision was made for only 3.7 billion. We do know, however, that total arrears accumulated at the Ministry of Finance and other MDAs is about 30 billion. The rippling effects of this cash crunch has reverberated through many sectors of our national life. Take the education sector, for instance, where students of colleges of education have spent just 3 months in school out of the entire year because government has been unable to give the authorities money to run the schools. At the second cycle level, this cash crunch has led to an erratic academic calendar and uncertainty as students are sent home and recalled at irregular intervals. At the basic level, government has not been able to provide textbooks based on the new curriculum. For 2 straight years, no textbooks based on the new curriculum, forcing authorities to revert to the old curricula, which was supposed to be outdated. The present economic situation has fueled talk among credible financial institutions and analysts, both local and foreign, of an IMF program to restore investor confidence in the economy. Who would have thought that the arch opponents of IMF programs in the immediate past will now find themselves in a situation where an IMF program will be recommended as a way out of the terrible economic mess in which they have left this economy? I had stated when we went to the IMF in 2014 with economic indicators and an environment that were much better than we have today, that it was going to be our last such program because we were confident that our homegrown fiscal consolidation program, which won the confidence of investors, brought stability back to the economy and laid the foundations for the earlier gains under this administration would be sustained and mistakes of the past would be avoided. The reality today is that despite all the gains we made, which we bequeathed to the current administration, including revenue from 2 additional oil fields, and all the resources they have received, totaling in excess of 400 billion Ghana cedis in the last 5 years, our country is virtually bankrupt today. Many have wondered what has become of all the claims of supposed competence and know-how in economic management by those in charge of the economy now, after beating their chests and giving lectures only a few years ago. There are indications that government prefers to impose more hardship and suffering on Ghanaians by introducing very painful fiscal measures in the 2022 budget, which is expected to be read next week as a way of avoiding an IMF program. This government must realize that there is only so much that the already overburdened Ghanaian people can bear, and piling on more taxes and levies on them will have devastating consequences on our households. The very high cost of living will go through the roof, leading to severe suffering for millions of people. And in any case, what happened to the mantra of from taxation to production? This is not a time for more taxes. The people are already reeling under the heavy weight of existing taxes. This is a time for efficiency and the modest use of the taxes that are collected from Ghanaians. The ostentation and opulence that have characterized the spending of taxpayers' money contrast sharply with the suffering of the people. The misuse of scarce resources on the avoidable creature comforts of the president and other leading officials must come to an end. It is an unpardonable show of disrespect and insensitivity to the plight of the suffering of the mass of millions of Ghanaian cedis spent on renting luxurious aircrafts for presidential travel at a time at a time when the state of Ghana has a fully fitted and airworthy executive jet that can ferry the president anywhere in this world. And I know because I use that aircraft. Professor Mills used that aircraft. The staggering 68 million Ghana cedis that was spent on presidential travel for the first 9 months of 2019 alone constituted an unconscionable waste of very limited public resources at a time that the population was being asked to tighten their belts. If you ask people to tighten their belts, you must be the first to show the way by tightening your own belt. Leaders must be in tune with the sensibilities of the people. Resources entrusted into their care must be used judiciously for the public good and not for the excessive comfort of the leaders. If this kind of waste was avoided, significant resources could be saved to address some of the more pressing concerns of the people. The loss of confidence in the economy has triggered very worrying sell-off of our bonds. And the sell of our bonds is not due to Sam Jatta George. Don't blame Sam Jatta George for the loss of confidence in our bonds. And this is putting further pressure on our beleaguered city. Firm decisions need to be taken immediately to demonstrate to investors that we have what it takes to turn the situation around. The critical decisions that must be taken to save the economy from imminent catastrophe must be guided solely by what is prudent and in the national interest, and not what is politically expedient. Another problem that requires immediate resolution is the explosion in unemployment. The specter of tens of thousands of frustrated and desperate young men and women running and falling over themselves to apply for very limited positions in security agencies, as we have recently seen, is most heartbreaking and deeply disturbing. Unemployment has truly become a national security crisis. Somebody says it's a pandemic. I agree with you. Here too, the government's approach has been one of nonchalance and the bandying about of dubious employment creation figures. This has been coupled with ad hoc and unsustainable measures that have led to throwing back onto the streets of tens of thousands of NAPCO recruits with virtually no hope of finding sustainable employment. At the core of our message to the people of Ghana in 2020 was jobs, because the unemployment issue was staggering and the youth bulge has surely become a major threat to our economy and our country. And that is why we made jobs the central pillar of our manifesto for the 2020 elections. From all the pillars of our policy planks in the People's Manifesto, infrastructure for growth, fixing the economy, tax cuts for jobs, developing a digital, functional economy, among others, our focus was on jobs and prosperity for all. Indeed, that was the slogan. But for the actions of the Electoral Commission and the subsequent verdict of the Supreme Court, an NDC administration would probably have been in place today, and the implementation of our various people-centered policies would have provided you and all of us better conditions of living than we are seeing today. Unemployment continues to plague our country, and it is clear this government has no sustainable plan to address it. The botched NAPCO experiment has proven not to be the pathway and the means to an end. We need to come together and face youth unemployment head-on. And I have said previously that we are prepared to cooperate with government to go into a jobs and employment summit so that we can all bring our ideas to bear in easing the problem that our youth face. The NDC's 1 million Ejumapa jobs creation plan, the free technical vocational education and training and national apprenticeship programs as contained in our manifesto are still relevant and available for this government to draw on for implementation. We will not take any copyright fees. If well implemented, we can create an average of 250,000 jobs every year for the young people of Ghana. In our manifesto, we also provided plans to make Ghana a 24-hour economy with 3 shifts of 8 hours each. Our plan was to aggressively diversify our economy, provide more public sector jobs, enhance productivity, and add value to our products for export. This would answer Goal 8 of the Sustainable Development Goals, that is decent work and economic growth. When I recently addressed the African Economic Congress, I urged Africa to engage and incentivize technology companies to focus on neglected areas and sectors that will impact the lives of our people, such as agribusiness and health. Further encourage fintech companies to show more differentiation and diversification instead of the seeming over-concentration on creating only payment platforms that are high-yielding today. I believe, for example, that telemarketing and online internet shopping will continue to offer opportunities for our youth in the distribution value chain. These are not things that I talk about in a vacuum. They are well thought through and structured solutions ready for implementation. On pages 41 and 42 of the abridged version of the 2020 People's Manifesto, we have laid out comprehensively how a digitally functional economy will be developed, among others, build on the infrastructure needed, train and create jobs, ensure expanded financial inclusion, introduce next generation agriculture, cybersecurity, among others. To further reduce the burden of unemployment, this government has a unique opportunity in the 2022 budget statement to lessen the tax burden on small and medium-scale businesses. They must be allowed to grow, to become more innovative and expand their employment generation capacity. While I'm aware of the tempting desire for government to amass massive revenues for their untempered consumption-driven appetite, I need to caution that we must not kill the hen that lays the golden egg. In this process, it has become evident that the current approach in public financial management has failed and needs to be reconsidered. It has also become evident that the private sector needs support to help resolve the troubling levels of joblessness in this country. Ghanaian companies have proven that when they're giving the needed push, they will thrive, flourish, and employ more. We tried it with a $20 million injection in pharmaceutical companies, Tobinco, NS Chemist, Danex, Dan Adams, and Kinafama, to expand production and provide jobs, and it worked. Such a stimulus package to viable Ghanaian entities in targeted sectors can be adopted under the current circumstances to induce growth and enhance the employment generation capacity of these selected firms. The Ghana Exim Bank must be redirected in its financing more towards agribusiness. Farmers and agribusiness in fishing, poultry and livestock, cashew, cocoa, palm oil, cotton, seed cotton, and rubber, etc., are in dire need of financial support to expand. Take advantage of emerging local and international markets and contribute to employing more labor. Public sector workers have proven over the years to be critical partners in national development. Perhaps this explains why it continues to attract many job seekers. I disagree with the oft-repeated position that the public sector is full and has no more room for people. The human resource gap analysis study we conducted on the public sector last year in preparation of our manifesto revealed very wide gaps and shortages in specific segments of the public sector. The Ghana Education Service and the Ghana Health Service have human resource gaps of almost 100,000 people. That is, the actual figure is 98,650. More people are needed to fill the CHIPS compounds, the hospitals, the polyclinics, to fill the schools. You still go to schools and you have one teacher teaching class 1 to class 6. And so there are gaps in education and health. Similar gaps were also identified in the security services. And so this human resource gap analysis shows that there's more space for employment, especially if we can keep expenditure, frivolous expenditure down. In the security services, Ghana Police Service resource gap was 35,020 more needed to ensure the security of this nation. Ghana National Fire Service requires another 30,136 personnel. Ghana Immigration Service requires another 3,522. And the Ghana Prison Service, from our human resource gap analysis, requires almost another 8,000 personnel. And so, if we can balance our expenditure and get rid of the wasteful expenditure, we get rid of corruption, we should be able to bring more young people into our public services. What is lacking are innovative strategies of financing these human resource gaps. The time has come for the government to bite the bullet and take the bull by the horn. Many of these sectors can be made self-financing to improve the capacity to employ. Once they are allowed to use portions of their internally generated funds instead of depending solely on the consolidated fund, they should be able to create more employment. Similarly, the informal sector, which includes the creative arts industry, sports, also deserve attention. Sports and creative arts are powerful, life-changing endeavors. Azuma Nelson, 20-year-old Samuel Techi of Tokyo, 2020 fame, Abedi Pele, Professor Francis Dodu, Adjo Abayo, the late Nana Kwame Ampedu, Amachi Dede, Kojo Entwi, modern-day musicians and actors, Shatawale, Stoneboy, Sarkodie, and all the artists, actors, and actresses have transformed their lives and that of their families and their communities using their talents. Governments must always keep in mind that their trade can only be enhanced if and only if the appropriate infrastructure and enabling environment is created for them. After all, traders at our various food markets need good roads to cart farm produce from the farm gate to the market to sell and make an income. While importers like my friends at Abosoka need a favorable exchange rate regime and a reduction in taxes at the ports for their businesses to thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quote for you a paragraph from the NDC's 2020 People's Manifesto, and it reads, Ghanaians need new opportunities for the development of their talents and skills. Transitioning from the current economic model to a knowledge-based economy will provide exactly that. For me, if a government must commit future generations to a financial obligation, then a substantial portion of the funds should be used for projects that can generate income to pay back the debt, or the funds must be directed towards public investment expenditure, CAPEX, that future generations can benefit from. The difference is very clear. If you compare our record to the current trajectory this government is on. We could also have opted for the short-term convenience of capping numerous statutory allocations, but decided against it because of our focus on equitable and sustainable growth. I've heard various reports about attempts to access the Ghana Heritage Fund by this administration to support the annual budget. That cannot be. And that should never be. I do hope that these are just speculations we are hearing. If the government has decapitated over 90% of the petroleum revenue inflows, what is a meager 8% in the Heritage Fund going to help them and do for them? The Stabilization Fund and the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, both of which were established during my period as president, have served Ghana well and can serve Ghana well. Let me recognize the contribution of my senior policy advisor, Dr. Valerie Sawyer, and the Venerable Atu Ahoy for their tireless efforts towards the setting up of especially the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. Additional oil revenues, which came on stream from the Sankofa ENI fields, the 10 field, and the energy sector levy, should have provided sufficient revenue to retire most of the legacy debts in the energy sector and strengthen the banking sector. We would have avoided the reckless and deliberate collapse of Ghanaian-owned banks, the massive job losses, and the many adverse socio-economic impacts that have been associated with this unfortunate endeavor. My beloved brothers and sisters, the singular effect of this botched banking regulatory action on consumer and business confidence will impact this country for a long while to come. I'm proud that as president and in conformity with our traditional way of doing things as a true Ghanaian, consensus building, our administration strengthened the consensual approach to policy building. We reached across party lines and accepted criticism in good faith. We did not hound journalists and civil society organizations for aggressively criticizing us, even if we disagreed with their approach or their viewpoints. Most of you will remember the Senchi Forum. That had an audience of prominent talents from opposing political groups and from across the nation. Another key plank of our administration strategy was transparency in our public financial management system and in our national discourse. The opacity within our current national discourse about economic indices undermines our collective progress. Debates about the true state of the nation, its debt levels, exchange rate trajectory, or even growth numbers underpin the need for strong institutions that cannot be subverted by individual preferences. Under the Ghana Integrated Financial Management Information System, which we popularly call GIFMIS, we implemented best practice control system to improve accountability in public financial management. We plan to pick up from where we left off. We also promulgated the Public Financial Management Act to align our fiscal management practices with international standards. While strengthening the economy for sustainability, our government further had our eyes firmly on growth and productivity. We did not believe we could recklessly borrow our way out of underdevelopment. A major hindrance to mobilizing sufficient resources to fund our development is corruption. We have in recent times witnessed acts of corruption, cronyism, and decadence that lower the pedigree and reputation of the office of the president. Not forgetting the dubious and opaque Ejapa gold royalty issues, which this government is still hankering after with plans of executing and hosting in a foreign tax haven. I must at this point recognize the nationalistic truth and outpouring of sentiments of many Ghanaians by the Catholic Bishops' Conference on Monday. Until we are bold to reflect what we are all experiencing under this government, the situation will continue to worsen, and we're all going to be the worse off for it. Ladies and gentlemen, civil servants, doctors, nurses, teachers, businessmen, women, traders, farmers, drivers, and the teeming unemployed youth of Ghana, this government is our common national tragedy. We may yet have to endure these very difficult times for a while longer due to a combination of factors. But I come to you this evening with a simple message. Do not, out of avoidable hardship and difficulties, despair to the point of losing hope and giving up on Ghana. Do not lose hope. Instead, I urge you to hope and work hard for a better Ghana and a better future under a new administration in 2025. I'm talking about a future where your name, your ethnicity, your tribe, your circumstances of birth will not determine how you are treated in your own country by your own government. I recall the words of the Most Reverend Japhet Yaoledo during my thank you tour of the Volta region. And I stand this evening to assure the people of the region and the nation at large that all successive NDC administrations will continue to be national and people-centered ones, sharing the national cake equally and beneficially to all regions and all parts of this country. A future where institutions will work for the good of all citizens, and all citizens will reciprocate institutions with willing respect, not demanded obeisance, out of fear of repercussions from the powers that be. A future where the President of our country will accord due respect to all citizens, including chiefs from all regions, so that a legitimate request by a chief to a minister to complete and operationalize a senior high school in his traditional area, started under the previous administration, would not be treated as shabbily as was treated by this president. A future where state institutions will not astronomically increase admissions to the Ghana Law School in an election year just because John Mahama and the NDC promised to expand access to professional legal education, only to turn around a year after the elections to deny access to many more students, 499, including those who are deemed to have passed the entrance examinations. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the issues the government wants you to ignore and forget. But how can you forget your living experience of hardships? No amount of digital propaganda, state-orchestrated and exaggerated actions and diversions will take away the excruciating hardship Ghanaians are enduring under this government. In the middle of all these social and economic injustices, I urge all state institutions, including independent constitutional bodies and the security apparatus, to be mindful of their mandate to the Constitution and the people of Ghana. They should not yield to pressure to become agents of oppression and the tools for government propaganda. This, our country Ghana, will be liberated. And they should seek to be on the favorable side of history. The recent brouhaha about upweighting the use and application of enhanced computer systems in our workflows, practices, and lifestyles is needless. Some have opted to term the drive a digitalization drive. I'm not the type to be taken in by words or huge catchy phrases, as I focus on the substance of the program in terms of its objectives, its mode of delivery, its outcomes, and the impact at cost-effective levels. That is what matters. It is quite amusing, though, that even as the economy faces these severe challenges requiring urgent action, those who have been responsible for the mess that we find ourselves in have attempted to make a transition from the self-styled economic messiahs of the very recent past to overnight IT champions. We are suddenly being told that the decades-old incremental progress that has been made in the ICT sector due to sound and consistent policy making spanning several governments, leading us to a point where they are being leveraged for convenient, efficient, and innovative service delivery and transactions, is the brainchild of some people whose record and involvement is at best very tenuous. It bears stating that if the ICT sector has grown in leaps and bounds, then it is down to the hard work of several people who dedicated their lives and efforts towards bringing us this far. On our part as a government, we upgraded the metro fiber link between the ministries in Accra and built a backbone fiber optic cable of over 1,000 kilometers in length, including the Eastern Corridor from Ho to Boko fiber link, with a link from Yendi to Tamale. This has given high-speed internet service to people in that corridor. Our choice of the Eastern Corridor, which is an underserved area, was instructive, as it ingrained our commitment to social justice and equity. We also deployed 4G LTE technology with 120 base stations across the country and built a Tier 3 National Data Center with a 600 rack space data center in Accra and a 45 rack space backup in Kumasi. It is important to appreciate that all digital software require an underlying infrastructure to allow for connectivity, storage, security, and analytics. In simple terms, without the underlying infrastructure, systems and applications cannot talk to each other to support decision-making. We also initiated various projects under the e-government project to digitalize documents and procedures in Parliament and the judiciary, amongst others. I keep wondering, rather curiously, why this government will not implement our policy of disallowing state institutions from investing in building separate data centers while we have space in the National Data Center. The history of port automation in Ghana perhaps gives a most vivid illustration of how illusory the desire to appropriate gains in technology uptake for partisan gain is. That process began under the Rawlings administration in the late 90s with the policy of the Ghana National Single Window Program, which culminated in the rollout of the GCNet system under President Kufuor in 2002 as the first phase. In 2015, the second phase commenced with a number of notable achievements: a fully automated pre-arrival assessment reporting system in 2015, which reduced the time for import classification from 2 weeks to 48 hours, and in some cases even shorter. The launch of a fully electronic payment system for the import declaration form IDF, which meant that importers could purchase these forms via credit card, mobile money, or bank draft, was launched. The introduction of Ghana's first Cash Express card for payment of customs duty on the Ghana Trading Hub was also completed. Other digital applications like the Trade Information Portal, Export Tariff Classification Tool, Duty Calculation Tool, Price Valuation Tool, and a fully functional help desk were in place. Following these interventions, a roadmap for full paperless goods clearance was developed and launched in June 2016, which among others would ensure that between 2017 and 2020, this would have been achieved. automation of internal workflow for each governmental agency, automation of the customs long room, introduction of paperless exchange control forms, introduction of paperless manifest and VA plies, among others. My administration and the ones before us invested heavily in this drive. My very distinguished audience, both in here and those joining us on radio, television, Facebook, and on YouTube, I'm profoundly grateful to you for your attention and your support. I've shared with you a few thoughts which should drive our nation forward on the path of progress and prosperity. I've also advocated the need for a sustainable economy that creates jobs and opportunities for all and not just a few. And that is social justice. That is social democracy. I'd always thought the posterity that was to judge me was very far away. But it has come too soon under this government's watch. I do not seek vindication. How can I seek vindication when the impact of this government's mismanagement of the economy has been so grave on the people of Ghana, whom I hold very dear? My task is to continue to give you hope. My task is to help our party, the NDC, to reorganize. My task is to put proper and enduring systems in place so that we work together in unity to win the elections of 2024 at the polling stations and in a manner that no mortal human being or man or woman can interfere with. My task is also to continue to serve our continent and our world. I'm currently working together with an independent global health panel through which I've advocated for the establishment of a global public health convention to ensure adequate pandemic preparedness and response. Another pandemic will be a disaster, particularly if it catches us unprepared like COVID-19 did. In a few weeks from now, I'll join our colleagues together with other regional bodies to observe the December 4th election in Gambia. My contribution to consolidating democracy in our country and in Africa is well known and enshrined. For the younger generation coming up full of ideas, creativity, energy, altruism, and who believe in a fair, just, and inclusive Ghana that offers you opportunity and platform to drive the change that you seek. You currently outnumber us, and the present and future are yours. I'm asking you to keep believing and showing an active interest in the fortunes and direction of this country. Considering your numbers, you are the majority. The current and future direction of this country rests on your shoulders. Let me at this point celebrate and thank my vice presidential running mate, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. She has been a worthy partner, and indeed, she was an efficient, effective Vice Chancellor and Minister of Education. In NDC, we do have the women. And you've seen many of them in the audience today and on display this evening. Let us continue to work for social justice. I urge all of you to stay safe, of course, because COVID-19 is still here with us. And those of you who have not taken your vaccinations, I appeal to you. It saves life. I've lost too many friends to COVID-19 because they did not believe in vaccinations. And I can assure you, the vaccinations are safe. You can take them and you would have no adverse repercussions. And I'm a living testimony of the vaccinations. And I can tell you, there have been no adverse repercussions on my mortal being. And so those of you who haven't taken it, please remember to go and take your COVID-19 vaccines. I thank you for your kind attention. May God bless us all, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much.
Can we do it better for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama? Thank you very much, sir. Please take your seats. How can you forget your living experience of hardship? Indeed, no amount of digital propaganda will make us forget, and we can never forget. It's important that we remember what we are going through in this country. Please, you can join the conversation if you are watching us on live, on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other new medias. You can join the conversation, #ThankGhana. With the permission of His Excellency, we are taking 2 sets of questions. We'll start with the media, the journalists. I'm sure that you can find the microphone. There's one on my right, one on my left. I'm taking 4 questions in the first set. I want to take it from the journalist before I open it up for the other members. So please, if you're a journalist and you have a question for His Excellency, please walk up to the microphone. There's one on my right and there's one on my left. No questions? Okay, so I'm sure that the modern day guys will say His Excellency has killed it. So there are no questions. Okay, let me open it up. If you are here and you have a question, before we go to the online questions, please, you can find the microphone, one on my right, one on my left, and then please, we are ready for your questions. Okay, so clearly I don't have any questions. So, His Excellency, you killed it. Thank you very much. I think that then we have to end this session. A round of applause for His Excellency. He did so well that we didn't have any questions. And then I'm sure that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to invite them onto the podium. The NDC's running mate for the 2020 election. She shattered the glass ceiling. I'm sure that if you're a woman in this party, you feel so powerful because His Excellency gave us a chance to feel that powerful. And I think that we all have to give a round of applause to Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai. Thank you, Mommy. I walk boldly because you have made it so, and we are proud of you.
Okay. Oh, please sit down. And thank you all of you for being here. My role, I've just been informed, is to give the vote of thanks. We want to thank all of you, not only for being here, for those who listened, for all the people who supported us in many, many ways. Some give encouragement, some give support in many, many complex ways. Oh, yes, you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Yes, I wanted to thank all of you for the support that you gave us. You gave support in advice, in encouragement, in your prayers, in your good wishes. You also gave support in tangible ways. and the list is endless. The people are many, and we want to thank all of them. We came to you asking for support. You didn't deny us. And we were able to do our campaign, going to the markets, to the villages, everywhere. And people received us, just as you have been here this evening. So we want to send our thanks through you to your friends, your homes, your communities, to all of us who had the faith in us that yes, there was something we could do and do differently to ensure that we are advancing our country, we are giving hope, and that yes, we can turn things around. But I want all the ladies in this room to stand, if you don't mind. Even those who are watching us virtually, if you don't mind. And I want all of you to join me in thanking His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And of course, at this point, I want the guys to stand too and add your thanks, because he has done something for women in this country. And I was completely floored, I was humbled, and I wondered at some point, how am I going to rise to the occasion? But with everybody's support, with everybody's demonstration of faith, we've been able to do a little bit. And I'm sure that regardless where we are, we'll continue to play our role. And also through you, JM, to thank the executives, all those who accepted your nomination. I'll forever be grateful to you. And we have worked very, very closely, more closely than from the ministry. And please believe me when I say he's the finest of gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And all of you, thanks for being here for this evening. Oh, please sit down. Thanks for being here for the lecture. This is a lecture. I'm sure everybody goes away with something. I normally don't like to sum up. We all pick something and we go away with it. I'm picking the message of hope, that all is not lost, that it cannot be lost, that it can be redeemed, that this country can be restored unto itself, that it will take hard work, we are willing to do it. It will take an expression of hope, and it will take an admission that yes, we can. Good night.
Indeed, yes, we can. And I'm a proud woman. And every woman here and out there, I'm sure you are all proud. Thank you, President Mahama. You blessed us with a beautiful woman and you made us proud. We were live on UTV. Thank you very much, UTV, Peace FM, Joy News TV, Asempa FM, GH1 TV, TV XYZ, Class FM, Accra FM, Adishi FM, Kumasi FM, Tadi FM, Dagbon FM, Sunyani FM, Pa FM, Sela FM in Sogakopa, and Weasel TV. We're also live on Metro TV, Ahoto FM, and its sister stations. Thank you very much. We are very grateful. Thank you, President Mahama and Professor Nana Jane. You guys were a good pair. And thank you, the National Chairman and the National Executives. We are very grateful for your hard work. Thank you very much, my colleagues from the media. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening. This show was proudly produced by Mr. Stan Dugby, the JM Digital team, and Weasel TV. The coordinating team of Dr. Omane Buama, Joyce Ba Mokhtari, Felix Kwachio Fusu, Sami Jainfi, and the communications team, and all of you who contributed to this beautiful program. We are grateful that you found time out of your busy schedules to join us. Tomorrow morning, when you hear the cock crows, it is us. From all of us here, we say thank you very much and have a great evening. Good
pulling off an amazing trick. A gold medal hopeful for host nation China at next year's Beijing